So Alex, tell us about the Response Centre. How does it operate?
So the AMSA Response Centre operates 24/7, 365 days a year. It's staffed by trained search and rescue officers who are there ready to respond to any incidents that get reported through to the centre.
Australia's search and rescue region is pretty vast. Can you give us a sense of how big it is?
The Australian Search and Rescue region is one of the largest in the world. It covers a little over 53 million square kilometres, which is just over 10% of the Earth's surface. So as you imagine, that's a very large area for the AMSA Response Centre to cover. It goes all the way up to the Coral Sea in the north, down to the Arctic Ocean, out in the Pacific and Indian Ocean, and obviously the landmass of Australia. So it's a very large search and rescue region.
So you said that the Response Centre is operating 365 days a year, 24/7. What sort of staff are manning that Response Centre?
So we have fully trained search and rescue officers that are specially trained in either maritime or aviation response. So their backgrounds and their skill comes from either the maritime or aviation or policing jurisdictions generally, and they've brought that skill set to us. Some of them have been there with us for a long period of time, so their level of expertise and their ability to respond to the incidents that come in is really just quite amazing.
What sort of background do those response officers have? Do they come from a whole range of different backgrounds?
They do. They come from a range of backgrounds. Some are from defence, some are from policing jurisdictions, but predominantly from the maritime or the aviation backgrounds, which is why we call it a joint rescue coordination centre, because it's covering both our responsibility for aviation search and rescue and maritime search and rescue.
In relation to boating preparedness, we're coming up to the busy summer season, of course, over the holiday period. Life jackets must be a very important part of keeping people and their families safe.
We're so fortunate in Australia that we have got some of the best waterways in the world, and we know that everyone's going to be out and about this summer. Life jackets are one of the key pieces of safety equipment because unfortunately we know that when people end up in the water and if you don't have a life jacket on, it can cost you your life, and we've seen that in the statistics that are reflected around deaths on our waterways. So it's really important that you've got your life jacket on. Everyone on board either knows where the life jackets are, and there's one for everyone that's on board that vessel.
What are the rules around life jackets? What should people know in terms of who needs to wear them?
Look, the rules do vary from state to state, and it's important that you do jump online to the websites of your local transport regulators generally where all of those rules are. But in most states, it's a requirement to wear them on the offshore environment, particularly around vessels under 6 metres in length. It's important that you wear them when you're crossing coastal bars or when you're operating in areas of heightened risk.
What about kids? Do they need to wear them all the time?
Generally, yes. Most of the state jurisdictions say that children do need to wear life jackets all the time, but it's just a very simple safety message. Our message at the Australian Maritime Safety Authority is that you do wear life jackets when you're on board a vessel.
The modern day life jacket's very different to the olden day sort of big bulky foam life jacket. These new life jackets are a very different construction.
The technology in life jackets has come a long way in recent years, and they're so much more comfortable now. They're not the big cumbersome life jackets that they used to be. You can buy very affordable inflatable life jackets that you slip around your neck that you don't even really know that you've got them on, and they're really comfortable. And some are even hydrostatically released, so when you do end up in the water they will automatically release. But it's important when you do actually put a life jacket on that it's properly fitted and you do know how to operate it.
So where can people buy life jackets?
So you can get your life jackets at any boating or outdoor recreational store. There's a variety of sizes, types, so it's really important that you get in there. If you're going to be boating regularly, you try them on. But if you're getting on the boat of a friend for a first time, it's important that you ask your friend or your family member where the life jackets are and get them to show you how to use it if you haven't used them before.
In an emergency situation, is it reasonable to say keep a life jacket stowed down below and then look for it in an emergency, or is it best just to keep it on all the time?
Look, it's best to keep it on all the time. It's like any safety equipment on board a vessel. If you don't know where it is and you don't know how to operate it, it's not going to save your life when you need it to. So again, particularly with life jackets, it's better to have them on. But if you don't have them on because you're on a larger vessel, it's extremely important that you know where they are, you know how to fit them, and you know how to operate them.
This time of the year, a lot of people might be inviting friends or family on their boat that they don't normally don't normally come on their boat. How important is it that you brief those people on how this sort of equipment works?
briefing everyone that gets on your boat is really important. It can only take a few minutes to do it, but again, if you do get in a situation where you're in distress, to actually then educate people or tell people where things are on your vessel at that time is really difficult. Your stresses are up, you're in a heightened state of alert, so it's better that people know that before you let the lines go from the boat ramp or from the wharf, and as I said, it only takes a couple of minutes to do it.
It's really important to carry some sort of distress beacon these days as well. There's some excellent technology out there. Just explain to us what sort of beacons are available and how they work.
Yeah, so there's two types really for the recreational market. So you've got your EPIRB, your Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon, which is generally used for boats and required in most states in the offshore environment. Again, check your local regulators to see when you're required to carry an EPIRB. And then there's a PLB, which is a personal locating device, which again can be used on small recreational craft, particularly on inland waterways and estuaries and up in rivers, but also great for hikers and bushwalkers in remote parts of Australia.
What about for those people kayaking or using those small watercraft?
Yeah, both an EPIRB and a PLB are fit for purpose for those. And again, it's important that you know how to use them and how to operate them. The beauty of them these days is that most of them are GPS encoded, but what that means is if you do activate it, it will come through to our AMSA Response Centre and your location will be pinpointed to us within approximately 150 metres, which is fantastic because what that means is that we can work with our state partners and our state rescue agencies to get someone to you as quick as possible. It's extremely important that you register your beacon with AMSA. It's a simple step. It only takes a few minutes to do and it's free of charge. You simply jump on the AMSA website, follow the prompts, and within minutes your EPIRB or your personal locating device will be registered to you.
So if I accidentally set my EPIRB off or I set it off and then decide that I'm not actually in an emergency situation, are there any penalties for that? Would I get in trouble?
There's no penalties for accidentally or inadvertently activating your beacon. What we do ask you to do is that you switch it off as quickly as you can and you do jump online to our website and there's an after hours 24/7 contact number there where you can simply give us a phone call, say it was accidentally activated and we will stop looking for you.
So if I have an old EPIRB sitting around in the garage or I buy a boat that's got an old EPIRB from years ago and I want to get rid of it, where can I find out information about how to actually get rid of that EPIRB so that it doesn't end up in the tip and start sending out a distress signal?
It is important if you are disposing of an EPIRB or a PLB that you follow the manufacturer's instructions, but there's also a lot of details on the AMSA website around how to effectively and correctly dispose of your beacon.
So a lot of people going out on their boats for the first time since last summer. What sort of tips can you give us on being properly prepared to go out on your boat?
The first thing is to check that your vessel's serviceable and in good working order. Too often we see people put their boat on the water for summer. They haven't used it all winter. You may have dirty fuel. It may not have been started for a long period of time. There may be some battery issues. So first thing to do is to check that your boat's in good working order. Secondly, check that you've got all the required safety equipment for where you're boating. It's extremely important. And probably most important, check the weather and know the conditions and just be conscious that the weather conditions can change quickly, so you've got to constantly check and recheck those weather conditions when you're out and about.
So in terms of how much fuel I should be carrying, should we be carrying more fuel than we think we need in case we get into some strife?
It's simple with fuel. We work to the rule of thirds, so a third for your journey out there, a third to get home, and a third in reserve is what we recommend. That makes sure that you've got adequate fuel for your whole journey, because the last thing we want is people running out of fuel and requiring rescuing.
We're very lucky in this country that we have a whole bunch of different volunteer marine rescue bases all over Australia, including some very remote places in Western Australia and the Northern Territory. Are people aware, do you think, that they can actually call up their local marine rescue and just let them know that they're leaving for the day and what time they're coming back, etc.?
We're really fortunate in Australia that we've got some strong search and rescue arrangements with, AMSA working with our state policing jurisdictions who rely very heavily on our volunteer marine rescue services. And it's important that all boaters recognise that most of the volunteer agencies out there are there to support you. You can log your journey with them. You can tell them where you're going, when you're prepared to come home. And in many cases, that can initiate a search if you do not return as planned.
So in terms of boating preparedness, things like checking tidal charts, these sorts of things would also be useful, I imagine?
Yeah, local knowledge is very important. And again, we acknowledge at this time of year people are holidaying and they're going to areas they may not have boated before. So it's important that you do your homework. You check your local charts. You drop in and speak to your local volunteer marine rescue services, particularly crossing coastal bars. We know that they can be particularly dangerous. So you've really got to check the conditions. You've got to talk to locals because every waterway is not the same and you need to put that safety front of mind.
And if you're thinking of having a beer or two out on the water, remember that the same limits apply.
Yeah, look, when boating in most parts of Australia, the same rules apply on boats as they do on the road in terms of operating vessels with alcohol. But our message is if you're out there and you're in charge of a vessel, you just don't drink alcohol.